We are now overlooking the Grand Parade, and it's about a mile and a half long, and it's almost 3/4 of a mile wide. This is where Baron von Steuben, or Die Steuben, brought the army to be trained. The Baron gets here, he becomes the Inspector General for General Washington to train the troops. Washington's private guard was sent out here, which was about 100 men, and the Baron trained them out on this field to be a standing army, how to march, how to volley, how to do a joie de foi, how to hinge, how to come on and off the field and have troop movement systematically. After about 2 weeks of the Baron training Washington's guard, Baron brought the General Washington out here and put his private guard through their drills. Washington was so impressed that he had the Baron and his 100 guards turn around and train the rest of the army. So Washington now is going to have a standardized army that's going to be trained by Baron von Steuben. He comes from Europe. He comes from the German Prussia area. He does not have a job because there's no war going on. He's looking for a job. He goes to Paris to visit Benjamin Franklin. He tells Benjamin Franklin that he was an inspector general in the King of Prussia's army. Franklin says, Continental Army could need you. Franklin writes him a letter of recommendation, tells him to come to the United States, go to the Continental Congress, and see if he can get a job. So when the Baron gets here, he's in Boston, he goes down to Carolinas, he finally meets with our Continental Congress, which is now out in York because they have vacated Philadelphia. They read the letter, they sent him out here to Washington, and that was the story of coming in with that massive flag. I believe that the American Revolution was won out on this field because the American army under Washington was trained here by Baron von Steuben how to be a standing army. So when the French come and sign the Treaty of Alliance in May, they are all up on that hill, which was behind that tree line, and they're looking down onto the Grand Parade. The Baron von Steuben brings the troops out here, which are now almost 21,000, and puts them through their drills. And it was extremely impressive standard procedures that he was putting them through. And he had them do a joie de foi, which you fire down one line, you fire up the next line, and you continue that process for about 15 or 20 minutes. And the French are so captivated that Washington now has this large army that was trained out here by Baron von Steuben. He not only trained the troops out here, but he brought in hygiene, and so sickness really went down a tremendous amount because von Steuben now puts in hygienic rules that the vaults or the potties or the bathrooms or the outhouses now have to be 1/4 of a mile behind all the huts. They have to be redug every 3 days, and no man out in this field is any longer allowed to relieve themselves wherever they want to. So von Steuben brings in order. He brings in standardization. He brings in discipline here, and these men are trained out here in this Grand Parade. And when the Washington's army leaves here, they leave here a standing army that's well trained, and it's well supplied, and it's well taken care of. And now this army that the British thought was going to die out here during the winter of 77 and 78 now is the opposite. It's a large supplied, standardized mechanism that begins to become the first modern army in the United States. Von Steuben was not an inspector general in the Prussian army. He was a lower ranking officer. Now I know that most Americans are very unfamiliar with padding a resume. No American does that. While von Steuben did that. He doesn't speak English. He only speaks German. Ironically, the only English words he knows are curse words. So he's screaming out orders in German, has to have them translated from German to English by another one of Washington's orders for men to be put through their drills. So it's like he's like a first-year teacher. You're writing your lesson plan for the next day the night before. He's writing all the drills the night before for doing them the next day. And ironically, or interestingly, some of von Steuben's blue book, that he called it, we are now still using in the American modern army. Standardization, being able to have everybody do everything the same, discipline, the hygiene, that's all because of Baron von Steuben coming here and training the men out on the field. And now the French know that Washington has a standing army that can fight the British toe-to-toe.